Good evening, Dartmouth sports fans, and welcome into another episode of Dartmouth Sports Classic. I'm Brett Franklin from Learfield IMG College, as this evening we're going to be taking a look at a matchup, a non-conference matchup of Dartmouth women's field hockey, as the Big Green taking on the Bryant Bulldogs from September 9th, 2016. And we welcome you in, and this game was the home opener for the 2016 Big Green field hockey team as they welcome the Bulldogs of Bryant in a non-conference tilt. The Big Green came into this game off a hard-fought season-opening loss to ninth-ranked Albany 3-1, and then fell at a good Maine team 7-3 the previous contest, while the Bulldogs came into this one hungry for a win as well. The Big Green leading the all-time series 7-1 entering this contest. And to help break down the game and talk about the season, we welcome two alum of Dartmouth field hockey, and we welcome in who was a freshman at this point in time in the 2016 season, forward midfielder from Concord, Massachusetts. It's Carmen Braceras joining us. How are you, Carmen?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for the time. And also being joined by Sarah Tabik, who was a junior on the 2017 team, the midfielder from Quincy, Massachusetts. And we say hi to Sarah. How are you?
Good. How are you? Happy to be here.
Well, thanks so much for both of you being here. And let's take a trip down memory lane as we get ready for the Bryant Bulldogs and the Dartmouth Big Green. Again, a non-conference tilt back on September 9th, 2016. So let's start off by talking about the season leading up to this contest. And Carmen, we'll start with you. As we mentioned, tough opening draw right off the bat. You guys played number 9 Albany to open up the season, then a long road trip to Maine for game number 2. Walk us through the preseason, the kind of the feeling of that team going into the 2016 season, and of course a unique perspective for yourself because you were a freshman on the team.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I was obviously really excited to be on the team, and this is my first preseason and then first opening games. It was definitely, and we had sort of a short bench that year. We had not so many players. So as freshmen, we were getting probably more playing time than we expected. And I remember in the season opener against Albany, we had, I was really nervous, but I think I got an excellent pass from a fellow freshman, Katie Spanos, and was able to score a goal there. So that sort of helped me gain a little bit of confidence going into the next few games. But just overall, really, I think the preseason helped us get a feel for the team and get some bonding in before we hit the field for real.
Sarah, what do you remember about the preseason of that season and then leading up to the Bryant game?
Yeah, I remember I was a junior at the time. I think I was coming off of my sophomore summer, so was on campus training, segueing right into preseason with my fellow teammates. We lost some, I think, key seniors who were the class of 2016, but we luckily had a talented freshman class, including Carmen, who came in and really hit the ground running. Like you mentioned, we played two pretty tough teams to start, but I think it provided us with that momentum to going into the Bryant game, which is always a battle. So yeah, and this was definitely an exciting one that didn't disappoint just in terms of the ultimate ending and win.
Yeah, we don't want to give the spoiler alert, but we will tell our audience that two of our guests here were definitely a big part in that winner. And, when you look at that schedule and you look back to that 2016 team, I mean, you guys played 3 nationally ranked teams that year, and then Maine also received some votes as well. But like you guys alluded to, I imagine getting that tough competition early on in the season, that's a good way to kind of get teams to bonding. And you played Albany very well, just a tight 3-1 loss there. But you guys had a tough schedule that year with the 3 ranked teams.
Yeah, it seems like our coaching staff sort of was able to get us some tough games early on for a lot of the seasons that I was there. I think in later seasons I played Delaware in an opener. I played Iowa in my senior year opener. And I think really starting out with those tough teams just gets us ready for Ivy League play. And a lot of those teams are able to start training earlier than we are. So it just really makes sure that we're like hitting the ground running, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We always, I think out of my 4 years there, our opening games are always some nationally ranked teams, obviously. A lot of running during those games, but I think it sets us up for, like Carmen said, the Ivy opener. We always open out with Princeton, who is historically like an awesome field hockey team, always top in the Ivy League. So we kind of need that hard competition early on to set us up for success and get us used to that high level play as we go into the thick of the season.
Yeah, and you guys also played number 1 UConn at one point that season as well, and that had to have been a big game. Right out. Never mind just playing a big Power 5 school like UConn, but the number 1 team in the nation. That had to be a very interesting pregame there, going up against the number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah, that was a pretty tough game. I remember it was we traveled down to UConn. I think it was like pouring rain that day. It was in the middle of our season. Super skilled team, obviously, just an absolute battle. But I actually think although the score didn't necessarily reflect it, I think we had some key people really step up that game. I remember my teammate, Anna Iwaseshko-Wazi, who we call, had an awesome game, and it was just a cool experience to play them. But yeah, I
think it was pretty cool that we were able to score on them as such a highly ranked team, the best team in the nation probably, like you said. But we definitely also let in a bunch of goals on the other hand of it. So I think it was a battle, but the fact that we were able to get creative enough to put something in their net was sort of really good for us, I think.
Going back to this game, and both teams hungry for a win. Bryant came in seeking their first win of the season, and again, we talked about you guys playing, 2 tough openers right off the bat. But can you walk us through the kind of the feeling in the locker room in this game? Did you kind of feel it was a big one, just knowing early on in the season, and you're about to get into that grind of the schedule? What was kind of that feeling like going into this matchup with the Bulldogs?
Yeah, I think what I remember playing Bryant, just like my 4 years playing against them, it was always a battle. I think it's always like a competition. I remember the year before this, it was kind of similar, where we were down for a majority of the game and it was a super dramatic comeback. And Bryant's just a team that always comes out to fight and to battle, and it's never an easy game for sure. So I think the sentiment in the locker room was, this isn't going to be an easy team that just lets us go out there and, kind of lets us score right from the get-go. We were prepared that it was going to be a back and forth game. I
think it also was definitely, I think we sort of knew that it was going to be a little different than some of the games against the really high nationally ranked teams, because Bryant was definitely going to put up a fight, but it might not be sort of as pretty or as clean on their part as it had been against some of the more nationally ranked teams. And so that requires us to sort of be patient and also, use our athleticism. They're going to use theirs. So we knew we needed to sort of keep up with that.
Talk a little bit about the team dynamic, if you guys could. Carmen, you alluded to earlier that, there was a lot of, younger underclassmen on this team that saw a lot of action, including yourself. You started 16 out of the 17 games for the season. So can you talk to us, the mindset of, being a freshman, just on that surface alone, has to be a lot to deal with. But then, you saw a lot of action in the season. So were you expecting that coming into training camp? What was your mindset going into that season as a freshman?
Yeah, so I was definitely not expecting that. I knew that the team sort of was a little bit low on numbers, but I still, thought that my freshman year I would get pretty little playing time. I knew it was a really skilled team, and I knew that it was going to be a challenge to sort of prove myself. So I was surprised by the amount of playing time I got. I was really excited by it. But I think it made it easier, even though it was really nerve-wracking, given that we had such great leadership on the team. We only had 3 seniors that year, but the whole junior class, additionally, that Vico was in, was so supportive. Even the sophomores and those 3 seniors that we did have were really great leaders. So it was just really great to have the support team there, and everyone was really happy that we were on the field and made it much easier for us.
Sarah, did you kind of, embrace that veteran role as far as being, one of the veteran leaders? As Carmen said, only 3 seniors on that squad. You started all 17 games during that 2016 season, which of course also led to an All-Ivy second team honor, which we'll bring back up here in a little bit. But what was your mindset going into that season with kind of the mixed roster of youth and experience, and just what was your feeling going into that training camp?
Yeah, I think what I mentioned earlier is the class that we lost, that 2016 class, was awesome leaders. And I think coming into this season, having lost them and having a pretty small senior class, I think not only, myself in the junior class, I think everyone on the team had to step up, including the freshmen, who were so talented and brought so much energy and talent onto the field from the get-go, which is so impressive. But yeah, I think going into this season, I knew I had some very, very big shoes to fill with the loss of that 2015 class. So I think we were a pretty short roster, and I think everyone, all the way up to the seniors down to the freshmen, had such a pivotal role in terms of leading the team. Everyone was on the field at some point or another. So it was definitely a unique season in that regard.
Carmen, can you walk us through, and Sarah, I'll ask you, what it was like to get that first walk onto the field, that very first time you walk onto the field as an NCAA athlete? What was that moment like for you?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I would say, definitely a lot of nerves, but also just a ton of excitement. It's different than high school sports. It's a whole new level of intensity, and the team dynamic is just so much stronger, I would say, than in high school. So when you step on the field for the first time, Division I, you can just sort of feel the intensity and the excitement from everyone, even people who have been there, seniors, juniors. So it was really exciting, and it sort of, throughout my career, it was every time you got back on the field, it was sort of like, felt like the first time all over again. You get nervous even if you were, an upperclassman. It was a big game. You would feel the same nerves as your first time.
And you scored a goal in your very first game against number 9 Albany. Do you remember the play? Do you remember how it all came about?
Yeah, so I mentioned a little earlier, but I remember, fellow freshman Katie Spanos, we called her Lenny. She gave me a really good pass up the right sideline, I think. And then, I just sort of took a shot. I definitely wasn't expecting it to necessarily go in. They had a good goalkeeper, but was really excited. And I think, my parents got it on video. They were really excited. But yeah.
Sarah, what was your first game like donning the green and white? And you remember some of the details from that? Yeah. My freshman year back in 2014, I think our preseason trip, or our first stretch of games, were out in Chicago. I think my first game was Northwestern, or some team that we were playing out at Northwestern's field. Definitely surreal. I think, right, it's kind of, as an athlete, transitioning from high school to college, I guess it's something that you only dreamed about and leading up to that time. Definitely nerve-wracking. The pace of the game is just so fast, and just so exciting. And it was an awesome experience. Wish I could do it all over again, but kind of past that point.
Yeah, I was just about to ask her, well, what do you, and Carmen, you can chip in after, what do you think the biggest difference is going from high school to the collegiate level in playing field hockey? You mentioned the pace of play, but are there some other things that you were like, when you first got on the field, like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that?
Yeah, definitely the pace of game, as we touched upon, but the surface of the field too, all of college, is played on AstroTurf, which is just so fast. Whereas in high school, you were playing on, either field turf or sometimes even grass still, which is like crazy. But just overall, like the surface is just so fast. The style of game too is just a lot more passing, a lot more technical parts of the game. Like I remember my freshman year, like going over our like press and just some different tactics that, in high school you kind of are just trained to run as fast as you can and to really depend on your athleticism, whereas the college game I think is just so much more technical. I think Carmen can speak to as well.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with what Biko's saying. I think in high school, when we were growing up sort of in Massachusetts, a lot of kids would sort of pick up field hockey for the first time. And now I know like people are starting much younger, and my younger sisters started at a younger age than I did. But even like I was one of only a few kids on my high school team who played club. And that's sort of when you play with club, you learn a little bit of the tactics, but really on the high school team, it's totally about athleticism. And obviously that plays a big role in collegiate sports too, but it's just that second level of just the skill. And you can tell that some of these girls have just had so much experience, and their stick skills are so quick and so deceptive. And so just really keeping up with that, and then understanding just the fundamentals and the tactics of the game, rather than just, like Biko said, like running around as fast as you can.
Well, and it's interesting because you mentioned, all three of us from Massachusetts, and and I think it's safe to say, field hockey not a huge sport at the high school level. I mean, even my high school didn't have a field hockey team. But let's talk about how you guys got into the game, how you developed your love for field hockey. And Sarah, maybe you can lead us off and how you got into it and how it eventually led you to Dartmouth.
Yeah, I actually think me and Carmen have very similar stories, but I grew up I just started playing field hockey in 7th grade, but up before that, ice hockey was my number one sport. I think I picked up field hockey because the field hockey coach happened to be the ice hockey coach as well, and just was like, you want to play? And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Always loved Dartmouth, was always my dream school. I think since I was little, I actually wanted to play ice hockey here, but then ultimately I think once I started playing field hockey in 7th grade, just ended up loving it, and came to the field hockey camps up here, and started out with ice hockey, jumped into field hockey 7th grade, and just didn't really look back. I think I played both sports all throughout high school, but just gravitated towards field hockey as I got a lot older.
Yeah, and like Biko said, I had a really similar story. Actually, I grew up my whole life playing ice hockey. Started skating when I was 3 or 4, and then was just playing that. And then same thing in 7th grade. I picked up field hockey. I didn't have a different fall sport. I had played soccer a little bit, but wasn't really that excited about soccer. And I thought field hockey would be pretty similar to ice hockey. So I tried out for the middle school team, and that was actually sort of the earliest they really had a team in our town. So then in high school, I played both field hockey and ice hockey, like Biko said. And then actually, I used to go to the Dartmouth ice hockey camp as a kid, and like Biko said, Dartmouth was always sort of my dream school. My dad went there, and I knew I really wanted to go there one day. And so I was at the ice hockey camp, and I had started playing field hockey and I was really interested in it. And so me and one of my friends like wrote notes to the field hockey coach and slipped it under her door. And we actually were able to meet with the assistant coach during the ice hockey camp and sort of get an introduction to the field hockey program there. And yeah, I got closer with the team through all the camps, like Biko mentioned. I think the fall clinic, spring clinic, and summer camp like really give you an opportunity as a recruit to get to know the team and the coaches especially. So that was really good opportunity. And then, yeah, I definitely, as soon as Dartmouth offered me a spot for field hockey, I accepted it right away. I knew that's sort of where I wanted to be.
I love the connection that you guys played ice hockey, and that's how it it developed. At what point did you guys know, okay, like this, playing this sport could lead me to, getting an opportunity to playing it? Was there ever a moment in your field hockey career in high school or middle school that you said, yeah, you know what, like this is a sport, if I embrace it, I can go pretty far with that? Was there a moment like that for you, Carmen?
So I actually, I wasn't even really sure that I would be able to play at Dartmouth until I got the offer. Like I was definitely surprised when I got it, but I definitely knew it was something I wanted to do. I was, I think, as early on as like freshman year in high school, I would say was when I really started to put a lot of time and energy into field hockey through my club team as well as my high school team. And I think I definitely knew that I wanted to play at the Division I level, and I was talking to a variety of coaches, mostly within the Ivy League. And so I was hoping that I would have the opportunity, and I thought I would have the opportunity at probably a few D1 schools, but I was definitely really hoping for it to be Dartmouth, since that was, aside from sports, my dream school. So I was really glad that it worked out.
Sarah, when did you know that that this could be this field hockey thing could work out for you, especially in college?
Yeah, I think I was lucky. My high school field hockey coach, I went to Middlesex in Concord, Mass, which the same town where Carmen grew up in as well. But my high school field hockey coach, her name's Natalie Martinez, and my assistant coach, Sager, were just awesome and great mentors for me. And I think I had a great freshman season as a high schooler, and I was still within that phase of, kind of playing multiple sports, hockey and lacrosse and field hockey as well. But they just instilled a confidence in me to kind of really pursue field hockey and kind of see where it goes. And I just kind of dove headfirst into it, still playing hockey and lacrosse, but really committed to like club field hockey and, different USA field hockey tournaments, things like that. And I think after my sophomore season, it became a lot more serious. I went to the Dartmouth field hockey camp my sophomore spring, and I think ended up getting offered a spot my sophomore spring. So it was pretty early in my high school career, but I knew it's what I ultimately wanted to do again. Dartmouth was always my dream school, so it was definitely a dream come true for me, for sure.
Was there any ice hockey tendencies that you guys had to quickly move on from when you got on to field hockey? Like, oh, okay, I'm not on the ice anymore. I mean, besides the obvious difference that you're not on skates, but I mean, was there certain tendencies like, oh, wait, like this, I'm not playing ice hockey here?
Yeah, I'd say for me the biggest one was like lifting other people's sticks. Like I would just want to like go in there and like pick up their stick and grab the ball, but that would definitely be a hacking. And I definitely would still accidentally do it sometimes. So that was one thing I think that was probably the biggest thing for me. Also like using your feet a little bit, but I think you quickly like in field hockey learn to avoid that just because it's such a big, like they'll call that right away as a violation. So
yeah. And also like the physicality of it, obviously you can't like box people out, or not that you can check people in women's hockey, but there's still like you can have a little bit of contact. I think You can't really have that in field hockey, and also like you can't use the back of your stick. So I remember going from like field hockey to ice hockey practice was when I was in like middle school and high school, and like getting to field hockey practice, and it took like a little bit to get used to not using the back of your stick or vice versa. But yeah, it's something you can quickly get used to, I guess.
Talk to us a little bit about the club scene for field hockey. You guys both mentioned that you did club growing up, and that's where you kind of honed your, being serious in this sport. But for those of us who maybe aren't in tune with the field hockey world, what is that club scene like, and how did that develop you and your game eventually coming to Dartmouth?
Yes. Called just Wizards, and actually it was an ice hockey club first, and so I played for their ice hockey club for a time, and then I was in the first year field hockey club at that program, and they basically got a bunch of girls who were in the ice hockey club but also played field hockey, and then recruited outside of that as well, and to form a club. And now it's really well developed, and my younger sisters both play on it, so a lot since the time I've been there. But yeah, there are clubs in Massachusetts now, and obviously there are some really great down in Pennsylvania. That's where a lot of the big events are, back in Pennsylvania. But yeah, I would say it's really centered around tournaments. There's some big tournaments Thanksgiving and then over the summer, which is different a little bit than what my club team was like for ice hockey, where you would have like a season weekend that culminated in one tournament at the end. So it was kind of nice because you got to sort of play with different, even within my club team, I would get with like a slightly different group at different tournaments, which sort of definitely helped me become a more versatile player, I think.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I played for a club called Cape Ann that we actually played out of, I think, MIT's turf in Cambridge, but it was a good group of just high school players from around Massachusetts. I think when I was playing club, there was really only a handful of club teams in Massachusetts, and that was one of them. And kind of same thing like Carmen said, just a lot of key tournaments kind of during Thanksgiving, as well as just I think like national club tournaments. And another big thing is Futures, which is through like USA Field Hockey. That's kind of another big showcase for younger players. But now definitely in Massachusetts, there's some really great clubs. I think the sport is really starting to blow up in kind of the Massachusetts and New England area. I actually help out coaching now with a club called True Grit that a Dartmouth Field Hockey alum started. So that's been a lot of fun and kind of cool seeing younger kids, again, starting at a much younger age than Carmen and myself, really pick up field hockey, kind of same background as us, playing, multiple sports, hockey, lacrosse, in the South Shore. So that's been awesome.
Is coaching in your future, Sarah?
I think, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm like loving helping out with club field hockey with the younger kids right now, but yeah, something I've always thought about, so we'll see.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I'm still kind of figuring out life for sure.
And you mentioned the field hockey scene in Massachusetts, that it's really grown, and that was actually my next question. Do you guys, being back in Massachusetts and and seeing that growth, do you guys think that field hockey is starting to be a game that is on the rise in Massachusetts and New England?
Definitely, yeah. I think my high school, I think last year was the first year where they had more girls try out for hockey than soccer, which was huge because of people trying out soccer. So I think it's on the rise. My like I said, both my younger sisters in playing Massachusetts, and even just the level that I see them playing at. I think English have been a player, and I think part of it is that more people, like in high school, only two girls on my team were on club teams. Now the high school, like more than half of them, I think, also play for club teams. So starting to play year round instead of just playing in the fall season, I think.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I mean, just seeing how much it's grown since I was playing in high school and kind of playing with my high school team and my club team and seeing where it was then and now, it's grown, like, I want to say exponentially. It's people are definitely starting to play more, as I think there's just more club teams to gravitate towards. More high schools are picking up the game, I think. So when I was playing, the South Shore didn't necessarily have like a ton of high school teams, and I think that's definitely starting to grow, and there's just more club programs to play and more exposure to the game. So that's been awesome to see for sure.
Is there any one reason for that growth in your guys' mind? Is it just the opportunities are much more available for young women nowadays to play field hockey? Like, I guess that's $1 million question. How do you attribute the growth of the game, especially in the last 5 years alone?
I think there have been a lot of initiatives at the national level. I know USA Field Hockey had some initiative. I think it was called like Grow the Game, where they were trying to get people to start playing at a younger age. So they would have they had specific program curriculums for how the practices would work for younger kids. And so it was really easy for someone to just use the curriculum and coach a group of younger kids to, or like, kindergarten, second grade. So I think that's been a big part of it. And, hockey is one of those sports that doesn't really have like any professional team, like league or anything, at least in the US. And so it's a little bit harder to get people interested in it who don't know about it otherwise, because it's not like they're watching it on TV and get interested in it that way. So I think just that initiative at the national level definitely helped a lot.
Yeah, I think too, field hockey is predominantly it's a European sport. It's absolutely massive overseas. Like even seeing Ali Savage, who was a senior when I was a freshman from Australia, Gemma, who I think during this game she was a sophomore, so just a year below me and a year above Carmen. They just came in from Australia. I had another teammate who was a senior when I was a freshman, Janine Legere, who was from South Africa. They just came in. They were players who started field hockey at an early age. Were playing like in elementary school during like their gym class. We're just so skilled. Whereas the U.S., I think over the kind of the history of the game here in the United States has been primarily a woman's sport, as well as just, kids start playing so late, throughout the vast majority of the country, where, as I think, like Carmen said, USA Field Hockey has done some great work just in terms of exposing the game to so many different areas of the country, and just having players start at an early age has been awesome. And yeah, the sport's been growing like crazy, which is great.
Well, we just saw the Bulldogs notch the first goal of the game, and it's interesting because when you look at the numbers there, going back to this contest, you guys outshot the Bulldogs throughout the contest there, but the Bulldogs getting a little pressure there late in that first half. Do you remember, that situation there, Carmen, and just kind of the feeling on the team there?
Yeah, well, just watching there a little bit, it looked like had number. I think it was lack of organization. They're circled, but really, turn the right way, ready for the ball to come towards them. So definitely probably frustrating. I don't remember the exact sentiment, but I think especially when you're in a game that's 0-0 for a long period of time, it's so important to get that first goal on the board. It's not your team that, it's really frustrating, and you have to make sure that it doesn't bring the morale down and that you sort of are ready to answer back. What we were sort of focusing on.
Carmen, you make a good point, and I'll ask you, Sarah, having, you're a junior during this season here, but, talk about the mental aspect of the collegiate game, as Carmen just alluded to. I imagine, when you get down, early, or things aren't going your way, that's got to be a big part of, the collegiate experience. How do you handle the eventual, ups and downs? And there will be some ups and downs, but was that something that you had to kind of learn to work with, the mental part of the game and just kind of the ups and downs of a season?
Yeah, I think it's something I think that you kind of inevitably learn as an athlete throughout the course of kind of growing up, throughout high school, as well as the collegiate level. Of course, the mental part of the game is just so massive. We did a ton of mindfulness. I think we started that my freshman year with Mark Hyatt, and that was awesome. He helped us a ton just in terms of visualization, in terms of kind of putting yourself in the mindset to really perform at your optimal performance, coming up with a pregame regimen that works best for you. I know for me, I did like a lot of pregame visualization, just a lot of kind of mindfulness to set myself up before the game, because I'm someone that kind of, I can hype myself out. Or I know in high school, I kind of got pretty heated just in terms of like bad calls by the refs and things like that Mark Hyatt and his mindfulness and kind of sports psychology were pretty big for us as a team, for sure.
Carmen, talk to us about that mental aspect here, going from high school to the college game.
Yeah, so I think that, high school, there's a little bit more, it's definitely less intense so that you feel a little pressure mentally. There's also often there's more scoring, so goals don't really have as big as an impact. The college game's a new level, and you get down, it feels that much more pressure on you. And I think one thing that we really focused on with Mark Hyatt, sort of in other teams, sort of like that you get in mindset. So in high school, like one person would be down, it wouldn't really be like the rest of the team's job to pick them up. But in college, it would be sort of like, everybody's mindset is really critical, no matter you are on the field or bench. And so we would have like words that we would use to pick each other up, or sayings. Example, got scored on, we would always say like 2 minutes, we're going to get it back in 2 minutes, or we're going to turn the momentum within the next 2 minutes. And then in my senior year or junior year, we had one of the underclassmen, Sarah Folkson, made these little stickers that were like location pointers, the way they like come up on a GPS to, and our motto was sort of like right here, like right now, to just really focus in on what's happening in the moment and not think about anything that had previously happened. So I think just in college, there's a lot more team awareness of the mentality, and high school is just a lot more individual.
All right, so we have reached the half here on Dartmouth Sports Classic. Field hockey action as the Bryant Bulldogs lead the Dartmouth Big Green 1-0. But do stick around, because there's an exciting finish to this one, so definitely stay tuned for that. We will take a quick break. We'll come back more with Carmen Braceras and Sarah Tabik coming up next here on Dartmouth Sports Classic.
As a trusted choice firm, the Richards Group has been committed to local communities for decades. We take the time to get to know our clients, their needs, and budget. We're independent, so we work for you, not an insurance company.
We use our expertise to find our clients the best home, auto, and business coverage at the most competitive price.
Our team provides consulting services for employee benefits, retirement plans, human resources, and leadership development.
The Richards Group. Prepare for tomorrow by contacting us today.
Make your debit card green. Big Green. Select from 16 options by visiting any Ledyard Bank location or calling 888-746-4562. Ledyard's online and mobile banking includes free personal mobile check deposit, so you can show all your Dartmouth pride on your home turf. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Growing your business isn't just one thing, It's a million little things. Should you lease, rent, or own? How fast can you get that part? Does it fit the budget? That's what your local CAT dealer is here for. With expert advice, flexible financing, and industry-leading equipment, you can get the job done day after day. For a limited time at Milton CAT, get 0% for 60 months on select new CAT compact equipment.
All right, back here, Dartmouth Sports Classic. Dartmouth Field Hockey is our sport today as we're back here. September 9th, 2016 is our contest. Dartmouth taking on the Bryant Bulldogs. Brett Franklin back with Carmen Braceras, class of 2019, and Sarah Tabik, the class of 2017, kind enough to join us here. So we'll get the second half underway from Chase Field in Hanover, New Hampshire. And that will lead me to my first question here. Let's talk about the AstroTurf. And, we were talking about earlier in the broadcast how both of you played in Massachusetts. Don't often see AstroTurf, if ever. But what's it like playing on the AstroTurf? And for anybody that has played on it, it does get a little bit hotter on that AstroTurf than it does in the surrounding stadium. So talk to us about the home field, Chase Field, for you guys.
Yeah, so, Chase it's always great to play on your home field. And the AstroTurf, like you said, it's so fast. It's just so different than what you play on in high school. And, you get way worse rug burns from it. You get scratched up. But the speed is it's awesome. And, for anyone who knows about AstroTurf, we water it before the beginning of the game and at halftime, so the water really helps pick up the speed of the ball as well. And then I was really lucky before, I believe it was my senior year, we got a completely new Chase Field. So the AstroTurf was redone. We got sort of new banners for the Dartmouth logo behind the nets. So that was really awesome. Before that, we had a little bit of flooding on one side of the field that we would have after every halftime. We would sort of be passing around in the puddle. But the new Chase AstroTurf was a little different. I think it might have been a different brand of AstroTurf, or maybe it was just the fact that it was newer. But it definitely takes some adjustment. But it was really awesome to be able to play on that my senior year.
Yeah, I'm so jealous that you got that, but I loved Chase. I thought it was the best. I personally thought it was like the best AstroTurf in terms of the teams that we played, but AstroTurf in terms of like playing field hockey is just like so different, even when comparing to kind of like a turf field. It's just so much faster. Just makes it so much easier to pass the ball with pace and things like that. And again, we water the field. If you don't water it, you get some pretty gnarly turf burns, which I think we all kind of experience. But big fan.
So
we also
go ahead, Carmen.
So I think one thing that like we would always talk about is how we're so lucky. Like we're the only probably Division I teams that get to have a field right next to the Appalachian Trail, and you just have like a beautiful view of the woods, which is super cool. And I remember one game, Harvard was warming up on our field, and their coach just made them all stop, and like he was pointing out the Appalachian Trail and like telling them to look around and everything, which was pretty cool because it just shows that like, we're super lucky to be in such a scenic area with our field, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, you two are from Massachusetts, as we mentioned earlier. So as the season went on and the cold started to loom, I mean, you guys are veterans of that cold, but there's some teammates that had a little trouble adjusting to the New Hampshire weather in winter. Do you remember a particular game where maybe the weather wasn't great for a contest?
A lot of them, for sure. It's not like we went to UNC down in North Carolina. I think a good amount of our games were pretty cold, and I personally hate wearing Under Armour, so I would go as long as I could without wearing it, but ultimately you would have to just since it was so cold. But we definitely had a good amount of our team is from maybe the Pennsylvania, Virginia area, where maybe they weren't as used to playing in the cold for so long, but I think people handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, so even being from Massachusetts, I'd say I was probably one of the worst on the team in terms of handling the cold. I definitely struggle with the cold. That's like one of my biggest like issues with skiing and stuff like that. But no, I think you get used to it and you learn to sort of layer, like, Biko doesn't need the Under Armour sometimes, but I would just, wear leggings, Under Armour, and yeah, I mean, the thing is, once you're moving, it's really not so bad, and it's almost kind of nice to not be a good portion of the season. It actually is great weather because you're not so hot that you're like dying the way you would be down south. But I think the spring sports in New Hampshire probably have it worse because they start February 1st. But yeah, definitely some tough games. I remember the Harvard game my junior year was like hailing, and the ball kept getting covered in snow, and so that was interesting.
I've been asking a lot of alums, their favorite and worst road trip from said season. Is there a road trip that you maybe was like, yeah, I could pass on going on that one?
Oh my God. Dude, there are a few. I feel like Cornell was always like notoriously so bad. I feel like one year, like the heat or something, or the AC maybe stopped working, like one of those two, and like our bus broke down, and it was like a 7-hour ride as it is. And also, I think Penn was always pretty bad, just going like through New York and everything. I think
you knew you were getting back late.
Yeah. Wasn't it, Carmen, wasn't it like my senior year, your sophomore year, where we had that nightmare trip to Penn and we were on the bus for like 12 hours?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, that you just get stuck in traffic on that one. So that one's pretty brutally long time. But we have some good bus movies sometimes. So
some really good movies going on for sure. The freshmen usually are in charge of picking out the movie. So
I asked women's soccer this, so I'll ask you that. What was the worst movie that was put on for that season? Is there one that sticks out?
Fowler always used to bring.
Yeah.
What was the one with the dogs? It was like
yeah. I can't remember what it's called, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, something about dogs.
The best movie of the season was always Shrek.
Yeah, Shrek for sure.
That was our favorite.
Yeah.
That was the bus favorite, was Shrek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any reason to that, or it was just everybody loved the movie?
It was just funny.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the music.
Yeah,
All-Star Smash Up.
Yeah, it didn't really pump you up. You can watch that before like a big game, but kind of like in the beginning or the middle of a long bus ride, it was good to play.
Sarah, you said though the freshmen picked the movies. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, Carmen probably started the trend of Shrek. I think her class actually did start that. So
yeah.
Looking at your individual seasons here, and I wanted to start with you, Sarah. I mean, as we mentioned earlier, you made All-Ivy second team in the 2016 season as a junior. You led the team with 8 assists. You started all 17 games, and obviously one of the big assists will come later on here on the program. But, walking into that season, we talked about your preseason mentality, but, I mean, was it just something that you giving out the assists? Was it just happened that way, or you looked – your first thought was, hey, I want to feed teammates? How did that all come together? And when you were named All-Ivy second team, what was that news like for you?
Yeah, I think I was never really like a big scorer. I for some reason, I think that was my biggest roadblock was as a player. Like I wasn't the one to score a lot of goals. I was in the midfield. I think I really relied on just like working really hard and kind of being that offensive and defensive all around player in the midfield. And I just naturally was, I guess, better at feeding the ball and assists that I kind of relied on that during this season for, players like Carmen to ultimately finish and score. But yeah, I think this season was yeah, turning point for me. I was happy to, of course, be recognized by the league, but overall, I was just proud of the team during the season. A lot of people could have seen this year as a rebuilding year with just having a short bench and losing some pretty pivotal seniors. But again, our freshmen just stepped in and really dominated out there and kind of made my job in the midfield easier, just in terms of feeding them the ball to score.
Do you remember getting the news that you made All Ivy second team, and was it a surprise to you, or how did you accept that news?
Yeah, I think it was myself and my teammate Morgan, who was also in my class, who got it, and our assistant coach at the time, Patty, texted us, and I think I was in class or something, and I got the text, and I was, of course, really excited. I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but again, was excited about the news, and I thought it was, I guess, a good way to end the season and good momentum for everyone in terms of transitioning to our senior year and everything.
Carmen, when we talked about, the mentality you came into that year being a freshman, thrown right into the fire, as you mentioned, you started 16 out of 17 games as a freshman, but you finished the season tied for the most goals that season on the team with 7. You led the team with 15 points. I mean, you couldn't have drawn up a better start to your career than that freshman year. I mean, it just seemed like it all came together for you.
Yeah. I think that was definitely really surprising to me. I was really excited to be able to, put them in the net, and definitely super grateful to everyone who's, behind me in the midfield and defense, Bico, distributing, everyone else back there. But yeah, I think I definitely in high school and then in college was sort of, I was always really hungry to score, and that was something that really motivated me, was sort of, getting it in the net. And I did not expect to be a big scorer in college. I think, in high school, scoring is definitely, it's definitely different because, when you have 1 or 2 people on your team who are more experienced at field hockey, everyone sort of just passes you the ball, so you end up scoring more. But obviously in college, that's not the point. The point is for the team to just, put the ball wherever it has the best opportunity to score. And so, I was really glad to be able to help the team by putting a few in the net. But yeah.
Great save right there for the Dartmouth Keep. And an interesting note in that contest was freshman Emma Plum came in for the second half of this game, and she made 10 huge saves in the contest. And let's speak to that. The goalie change there from the first half to the second half, and we just talked about the freshmen having to step up in that 2016 season, and Emma Plum did just that in that second half there, Carmen.
Yeah, so I mean, that was something that was really awesome about that season, I think, is we had 3 really strong goalies. We had a senior goalie, Paige Duffy. We had Haley Valerio, who's a sophomore, and Emma Plum, who's a freshman. And so, the coaches were not afraid to sort of use all of them. And so we didn't really have one starting goalie for that season, which I think was really cool, actually, because a lot of the teams we played against didn't know what to expect. Emma had a really different style of play than the other 2 goalies. She would really come out of the net and approach the ball in sort of an aggressive way, which ended up being a really good tool to have, sort of, when you would have certain types of players that you're playing against. So yeah, she had a really great season that year. And it was just really, really great to have 3 super strong goalies.
Yeah, they were definitely those 3 individuals, Paige, Haley, and Emma, were totally the backbone of our team. Kept us in some really big games. So obviously Emma had an awesome performance this game and made some huge saves. So super fun to watch.
Yeah, and I got to imagine, like with, ice hockey, anytime you make a goalie change, it can change the dynamic of the contest. But it seemed like the goalie rotation, they had a good rapport, and whenever somebody's number was called, that they were there to answer it.
Yeah, definitely. they were just sort of ready to go, with such a deep bench of goalies. It sort of could have been easy for them to just get sort of like cold on the bench or whatever, because you might not be the next one going in, or even like you might be the third one going in, but they did a great job of like all being ready to go, no matter when it was their time.
Yeah, totally.
And I got to imagine with this season too, it was like everybody, be ready, because you never know when your number is going to be called, right? And that's not just the goalies, but anybody on that season. Was that sort of that type of feeling, like, hey, you never know when your chance is gonna be called here?
Yeah, we definitely had to rely on our fitness. I think a big thing with our program was always like fitness, preseason fitness tests, just like making sure that we were in optimal condition to play. So we really had to rely on that this season for sure. I think we have a stroke right now, and I remember this was dramatic.
Yeah, walk us through it here.
I remember, like, I don't know, I'm not going to give any spoilers right now, but let's just say I wasn't really happy after this one. Yeah, but I remember this being a turning point in the game. Yikes.
Now, why were you, now obviously not putting it in the back of the net, but why were you more upset with yourself after that one? Was there a certain point in the net you were trying to hit, or?
Yeah, I think I always, on strokes, I tried to go bottom left. Obviously didn't hit the corner that time, but I remember after this just being really, like, motivated to, let's go. Like, we're not losing this game. Down 1-0. I think this was totally a turning point in the game where we really stepped it up and had some really impressive. Carmen just wiped out right there. Had some really impressive chances, and yeah.
Well, like we said, I mean, you guys were just blistering shots on net throughout the game, and I think you talked about it, Carmen, a little bit. Is that you got, when shots aren't falling, you got to keep up the positivity on that. But I mean, when you look at this game, this was a great game. Both goalies, I mean, even credit the Bryant goalie. She played very well. I mean, this was a very good, field hockey matchup between two teams. I really wanted it on that day.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely gets frustrating when you feel like you have a lot of offensive pressure going and it's not working out, but that's just sort of credit to the other team's goalie and defense, and you just know you have to work that much harder to put it in.
Let's talk a little bit about, Ivy League field hockey as a whole. You talked a little bit about, that both of you knew you wanted to come to Dartmouth and that this was your dream school, and, field hockey worked out for both of you. But, what is the field hockey landscape like in the Ivies? You talked about Princeton always being a team that is right there as far as being the best. But what is that like? Maybe the style of play, is it different from other leagues? How would you describe that for maybe the non, for the casual field hockey fan?
Yeah. So the Ivy League, we obviously, a bunch of talented teams within the league. Like we said, Princeton's always, like, historically, like, at the top of the league. Harvard recently has just been an absolute powerhouse as well. But the Ivy League's unique in that we don't have like a league playoffs, like where you see like the ACC having kind of an end of the year tournament that puts them into contention for, like the national tournament. What makes the Ivy League different is, every game is on the line. Like, we unfortunately don't have that opportunity to kind of redeem ourselves in, say, an off season or like an end of the year league tournament. So every game is super important. I think, over the course of the 4 years, like, there's been crazy upsets. Again, Princeton and Harvard are top of the league, but yeah, I think every game is just so competitive and just so important that you can't really cost being off that game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vico kind of touched on this a little bit, but one thing that's really cool about the Ivy League is even though there are some sort of powerhouses in the league, every game is sort of up in the air, and it's, every game going into it that you have the opportunity to win if you play everything right and if you sort of use everything you've been working on in practice, etc. Like, I know there are, some teams that are, or some leagues out there where there's not as sort of even matchups. And, there's so many games over my 4 years that went into overtime within Ivy League play. And, obviously there are other games that go into overtime too, but specifically like, Columbia, we went into overtime with a bunch. Brown, we went into overtime with. And so really each year it's no matter who won the previous year or who's beaten other teams earlier that season, it's any team's game, and it's just whoever shows up to play.
The favorite Ivy League rival that you guys personally liked to play? Obviously, Harvard gets thrown around a lot out there as the natural rival, but was there a certain team or that program you guys look forward to playing in the Ivy League every year?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think Princeton's always a good one for us because it's the first Ivy League game of the season, and it's the first time where you're really out there with that particular team competing in your league, and it's just something, it's a really special game every year. It's super high intensity, and even though Princeton is, one of the best teams in the country, we always show up and play a really hard game against them. Unfortunately, I was never on a team that was able to beat them, but there were definitely all 4 of the games I played against them were games that, we put forward a good game, and it was really, the whole time it was competitive. It wasn't like a blowout.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Princeton just being our opening Ivy League game, stakes were always high. Was always a super competitive game, really fun team to play just in terms of how skilled they are. But I think every game that I played, like each of my 4 years, just really set the tone for the season. And that was probably our biggest rival historically. I think Harvard's obviously a rival, but I think that's the unique part of the Ivy League, honestly, is that like there's really no team that you play that you're like, whatever, they're like a pretty nice team. Like, I think every game you kind of go in with a chip on your shoulder, wanting to beat them, just since, again, we don't have that end of the year tournament.
I'm guessing when you guys played down at Harvard, you had a lot of family members that were able to come out and see the contest, both being from Massachusetts. So that's probably one bonus there, playing at Harvard. At least the Massachusetts family contingent can come on down to see you guys play.
Yeah,
definitely.
Sure. A lot of
we
family
scrimmage
members.
them, yeah. We would always scrimmage them every year too. So if we weren't at home for the actual game, we'd be at home for the scrimmage. Or if we weren't at Harvard for the actual game, we were at Harvard for the scrimmage. So we always would have, an opportunity every year at least to be sort of close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, talking about Harvard and talking about Princeton. Is there was there a non-conference game, maybe trip? I know you had mentioned you guys went out to Northwestern and played Iowa, but was there a non-conference trip that will always stand out for you, or a non-conference game that you guys traveled out for?
One of my favorite non-conference games every year was always Holy Cross, because I had that was sort of another one that was close to home, but specifically I had a ton of players that played on my club team with me in high school on that team. So it was always, really competitive, but also super fun to play against them. And I think my senior year, there were 7 of them from my club team on that team. So always a big group to compete against, which was really fun.
Yeah, I would say UNH as well. We always used to call that like state because we were the 2, I guess, like Division I teams in New Hampshire. So that was always a super fun game. I think it was always a battle. I think we were 2-2 over the course of my 4 years, but I remember, I think it was my senior year where we beat them and it was a super fun game. Or maybe it was my sophomore year, but one of those years. But that was always an exciting game, Battle of the Granite State.
And, looking at, going back to this 2016 season and, as far as, gatherings or, was there team building, was there any, funny moment through the 2016 season that you can share with us, obviously, here on camera? But is there one funny moment from that year that you'll always remember? Sarah, I see you laughing over there, but is there anything in particular from both of you that you'll stand out, whether it's from a bus ride, a road trip, what have you?
I keep on thinking of Shrek, but there's nothing.
It always comes back to Shrek.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, honestly, a lot of the funniest moments I feel like come at certain moments that we have traditions of doing things every year, whether it's our Halloween practice where everyone dresses up by class for a costume contest, or at the beginning of the season we get into competition teams and you perform a skit to introduce your competition team. So yeah, lots of funny memories. Definitely hard to sort of remember what happened what year, but definitely lots of funny memories.
Yeah, I think Carmen's class always won the Halloween costume competition. So
yeah, we 4 years, all 4 years we won the competition.
Must have some good costumes to win that 4 years in a row.
Yeah, we got pretty creative, so we were proud of it.
Was there anybody who had a really creative costume that year that stood out?
Well, freshman year, my class, the one we won with, so there were 6 of us, but we dressed up as the 7 dwarves, but we decided to make it personalized. So each one would have a nickname that described the person. So I think I was picky because I'm a really picky eater. And then, Lenny, who's the tallest one on our team, was lanky because she's super tall and skinny. So we sort of customized them all. And we handmade the costumes, which I think the coaches appreciated. But yeah, that was, I don't think that was our best necessarily, but that was what we did that year.
yeah, I think for our competition teams, my team we ended up winning that year, and we were the Falcapellas, and I think our opening skit was that car scene from Step Brothers, and we crushed it.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Who was the funniest person on that 2016 roster? As far as best sense of humor, that every time you saw them, they just had a joke or they were ready to go. Is there anybody that stands out?
Maybe Wazzy or Paige Duffy, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, Biko is pretty funny too.
Okay.
But I definitely say Wazzy, Puff, Biko.
Yeah, Carmen's funny. Honestly, the freshman class was just hysterical. Is my take for sure.
I think that's one thing that anybody that's played on a team or has been a part of a program is, those little things, those little moments that you have with your teammates, whether it's in the locker room, on those bus trips, in the hotel. I mean, those are the things you kind of remember. I mean, you obviously remember the wins and the losses, but I think you remember kind of those little things more so than anything else, I would imagine, correct?
Yeah, totally. We had, we were lucky. I feel the Dartmouth field hockey overall, culture and group of people throughout my 4 years, were just all, of course, funny, but just overall amazing people. Had some hysterical bus rides and hotel trips. I remember whenever we played the University of Maine, we would have to stay in the Black Bear Inn in Orono, and I remember, I think it was this year, the only restaurant that was available near us was Olive Garden. And so we went there for 3 hours and just posted up there, and went back to the Black Bear Inn, where when you went into your hotel room, it was just pictures of black bears, and just historically a very funny trip.
Yeah, and I remember that was also this year when the coaches had us do a competition with your roommate where you would they had this framed picture of dancing bears in the in all the hotel rooms, and so they had a competition of which roommate pair could do the best replication of the dancing bear painting. I remember I was roommates with Paige Duffy, who was the senior goalie at the time, and we were standing. We brought the painting into the bathtub and tried to recreate it.
When you look at the team and you talked about those experiences, now that you guys have graduated and are out in the real world, can you talk to us the importance of playing a team sport and how that has correlated into your professional life, or maybe some of the different variables of playing a team sport, what that's done for you in your professional life, if there's any crossover there? Can you kind of talk to us about how important that played, especially as now that you've graduated?
Yeah, I think definitely, the aspect of just the need for hard work and organization. I think time management, those are all huge factors that have been carried over into my short-lived professional life so far, since I just graduated a few months ago. But yeah, so I think those are all really important. And then honestly, the network that sports, especially at the collegiate level, provides you is
there we got the goal right there. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Nice goal.
Now, Sarah, you had the nice assist there.
Yeah, to Carmen. I think that was kind of a little ice hockey move. I think it was just a tip, a little diving tip, and Carmen had the finishing touch. So that was a good connection.
And that was a set play, obviously, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, can you speak to some of the intangibles you were able to use from your days of playing and now into your professional life?
Yeah, I think it honestly is very relevant to, I'm kind of within a sales-oriented role. So with that, it's just a lot of time management, a lot of resiliency, grit, determination that you get from playing a team sport, but also having that mentality that you're only a portion of the equation, where you need to really collaborate with your coworkers and ultimately come up with the plan to in sales to kind of hit your quota and get things over the finish line. And you can't really just depend on yourself. You have to kind of go to the drawing board with your teammates, and a lot of collaboration and recognizing your strengths and weaknesses and coming up with a clear path moving forward.
Obviously, we talked about with the goalie switch, Emma Plum just flying all over the place out here. I mean, you watch these highlights, and some of the saves she makes is pretty impressive. And like you said, Carmen, a very aggressive goalie approach here, and it seemed that really paid off in the second half. Yeah,
I think not only did it really pay off in these big games, but it also paid off in practices, because when we practiced against us, we had to be more creative to, play against a goalie who was coming at you with speed, as opposed to one who sort of sat back and you had more time to think about what you were doing. So that was sort of a really unique style of play that I think definitely benefited us.
Nice kick save there. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Infield hockey too, which we'll see later on in this game. A lot of shootouts. I think so. Emma, I think it's always so hard to play against an aggressive goalie that kind of runs at you like a field player. I feel like there was definitely a few times where I was going one-on-one in a shootout against Emma, where she took me out and took the legs right from under me. But yeah, I think she had such a cool style of play that was really hard for opponents to play against.
And like you said, mixing up that goalie rotation throughout the season had to keep teams on their toes, because you didn't know what you were going to get.
Yeah.
So we're winding down here. Of course, we don't have a clock here on our scoreboard, but we are winding down towards regulation here, and it looks like Dartmouth's going to get a free look here, and see if you guys can walk us through this setup here.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it's getting to the end. We're definitely getting a little tired out there. Everyone's sort of leaning on their sticks as we get ready for the corner. But, you know, at the end of these games, the corners are so important because that really makes or breaks it. So you really just want to be able to capitalize on every opportunity that you have with these.
Yeah, we did a lot of corners are just a really big part of field hockey since, you know, when you win them, you're at an advantage. Obviously being numbers up, and if you look at our sticks, we usually have like corner stickers numbered 1 through 10, and we have set plays that we practice over and over again. Usually at the end of every practice when you're already tired. So kind of sets yourself up for success during a game and being used to being fatigued.
Yeah, and that would always be something that we'd sort of keep track of our percentage on throughout the season, and throughout some of my seasons there, we would keep track of our percentage at practices too, and we would have to hit certain numbers. So that's definitely an area that we would sort of think of as something we could control and try to get those numbers up. Because you do have so many more numbers than them. It should be a little bit more in your court as to the outcome.
Now, this may sound like a silly question, but as far as the set plays go, how is that determination as far as what play you want to run? You know, how many set plays would a team have, or maybe particularly for you guys that season? Oh, and a great chance right there. Nice save by the Bryant goaltender. But walk us through what that set play situation's like.
So it depended. I think there were a few things. We did a lot of scouting before games where we would look at a different team's defensive penalty corners. So the ones that are wearing the masks, usually there are different forms. You know, they could run out in a box or be more aggressive, where they have one person really running straight at the ball. But we did a lot of scouting before games, and our coaches came up with, you know, different corner plays that would work against those, you know, the opponent when we studied their defensive penalty corners. And another thing too is just analyzing the game and seeing who's on right now. You know, maybe I know Morgan Philly did a lot of hits for us, so, you know, if she was really on that game, it could be, you know, just a lot of hits from Mo, or a lot of it too is just thinking on the fly, so you can't really predict how people are going to run at you. So yeah.
So we've come to the completion of regulation here on Dartmouth Big Green Sports Classic. 1-1 our score, as Dartmouth and Bryant going to head into overtime. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We'll obviously see the overtime, and we'll also see the exciting finish of this one as we go back to September 9th, 2016. Bryant and Dartmouth field hockey overtime coming up next on Dartmouth Sports Classic. Stick around.
There are lots of things that are true about each of us, but sometimes we are held back from being ourselves. Sometimes we are told we can't do a certain thing because we're a boy or a girl, but it's okay to be who we are. Girls can be messy and boys can be neat. Girls can be fast and boys can be creative. It's good for both boys and girls to talk about their feelings and to clean up their messes. It's okay for all of us to be scared, brave, loud, quiet, gentle, and smart, and it's always good to ask for help when we need it. We get to decide who we want to be and how we want to spend our time. All that matters is we are genuine and no one is getting hurt. I'll support you in being yourself, and I hope that you'll support me.
Domino's knows a thing or two about delivery, so when we saw people were getting tacos and burgers delivered like these, we had to step in. Introducing our new chicken taco and cheeseburger pizzas.
What? Oh my.
Now the best way to get a taco or burger delivered is to get a Domino's pizza.
All right, back here, Big Green Sports Classic, Field Hockey Edition. We welcome you back. Brett Franklin alongside Carmen Braceras, class of 2019. Sarah Tabeek, class of 2017, kind enough to join us here as September 9th, 2016, Bryant and Dartmouth going at it at Chase Field in Hanover, New Hampshire. We have hit the end of regulation, and we now go to overtime as the Bulldogs and the Big Green getting ready for an extra session of field hockey. And as we get things going here, Carmen, Sarah, can you talk to us, end of regulation, tightly contested game. I mean, this was very exciting, a lot of close shots, both goalies playing really good for both squads. What was the message at the intermission going into overtime, and just what do you remember about that extra frame, going into that extra frame?
I think just when any of your games where you're going into overtime, you've worked so hard to get there. And in this game, we were down at first, and then, we worked hard and we tied it up. And you really just want to come out with the W. And overtime in field hockey is pretty exhausting because it's, there's almost half the amount of players on the field than there are in regulation. And so it's a ton of running, and you kind of just want to end it as soon as possible. So definitely just trying to put the ball in the net here, and it ends up going on.
We're not losing this game. I think what Carmen touched upon is field hockey overtime is just pretty brutal. Yeah, it's 7v7, including the goalie. The field's obviously 100 yards long. You're exhausted, so it's kind of when that mental piece really kicks in of, ultimately you want to end this as soon as possible to win this game. And, no question that we're winning this game. So, the overtime was a grind, but exciting for sure.
Is there and Carmen, you kind of alluded to it, is there a different mentality as far as the style you're playing in overtime? You mentioned there's less players, so are you a little bit more conservative as far as how you're attacking the net, or is it still the same as what you had when you were a normal full-strength type of game here? What's the mentality in overtime?
Yeah, so it's definitely a little different style of play. I wouldn't say in terms of the attack you're too much more conservative, because obviously you just need to get a goal in overtime since it's sudden death. But you're definitely more conservative on certain aspects, such as the press. So when the other team's outletting the ball, you only have one forward really, so that forward can't be sprinting across all three of their outletters. So you kind of got to just pick and choose what you're going to go after. And then also in general, it's just like, passing is so much more important. Obviously, passing is really important in regulation too, but here the ball can move so much faster than anyone can running, and so just to keep your legs fresh, you gotta utilize that.
Yeah, it's as soon as you kind of resort to just running around, you're gonna die out pretty quick. I think in field hockey overtime, I think it's what Carmen said. A lot of passing, letting the ball do the work, putting the ball into space. Ultimately getting down there to win a corner is your best bet because, again, overtime it's 7v7, so you really have a big advantage with those corners like we're going to see right now.
So maybe Sarah, you can walk us a little bit through this corner and just kind of what we're seeing and just kind of the setup here. Obviously, we got a meeting at the top of the circle there on what you guys are going to call.
Yeah, so it's different, I guess, corners in overtime. So you see Wazzy who's going down for the insert. I'm up top, stick stopping the ball, and I think we have, I think that looks like Val who's about to hit it. And then we have Katie Spanos running in for the tip. So with corners in overtime, it's pretty simple. You insert the ball up, quick shot up top. Maybe you get a little fancy with a few passes, but yeah.
Now, is that a situation where the coach says, I want player X to take a shot, or do you guys in that huddle say, who wants it here? Or is it just kind of the spur of the moment kind of thing?
Yeah, so our coaches, I think Patty usually called the corner. She has a little whiteboard that she'll put up, say like numbers 1 through 10. She'd put up a number. We'd look at our corner stickers and kind of go off what she said.
Carmen, was there any sort of, and here's a nice defensive play right there. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something right there. You talked about that aggressiveness, and right there, that held, that put the opponent, you could kind of tell she could kind of hesitated there for a second, but that was a nice play there by the freshman Emma Plum.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was scary.
Now, you talk about the closeness of the games, and the one thing about that 2016 season, I believe you guys had 6 games where the final score was 2 goals or less, decided by 2 goals or less there. And, that can go one way or the other on a season, right, where you're winning those close ones or unfortunately coming up on the other side of it. But, I mean, you guys played some very competitive, close games during that 2016 season.
Yeah. And, those are sort of the fun games to be in because they're really down to the wire. Like this one, a lot of them going into overtime. Unfortunately, throughout my career, we definitely had trouble with that type of game. And, there were a lot of games that we came out of that were within 1 or 2 goals that we felt like we were right there the whole time. And maybe it was we missed one tip in front of the net, or there was one bad play defensively that really determined the game. When it's that close, little things make a big difference. So I think, we got better at it as time went on, but I think that was something we definitely struggled with a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, and this year too, it was, right, we had some awesome freshmen and again, a pretty short bench. And I think having those games where maybe we lost by a goal or 2, we had a lot of heart. I don't think we went into every game kind of as the underdog and, fighting into the last whistle. But I think, again, just a lot of heart and determination and grit with this team that I think those games where we were down by a goal or 2 kind of set the tone for the next year to use that as fire to kind of win those games next season.
Yeah, and that really kind of forms the type of play, when you're playing in those tight games, and how do you able to overcome those scores there. But like you said, I mean, that's the one thing that you mentioned, Sarah, that this team had heart, that they were going to come out and they were going to compete week in and week out. And, while it might not have translated into the win column, that these teams played hard, and that every game was going to be a battle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Was that just kind of the character of the players you had in that locker room?
Yeah, I think, like I said, we had really good leadership on that team, and we were able to sort of not really let the losses get to us in a way that would bring us down for the next game. So, I think we really let them fuel us rather than taking a toll on us. So I think, that was one thing that I think was really great about this team is that we just kept going, grinding it out. We had a lot of grit, I would say.
Yeah, we really didn't have a choice otherwise. We had to go in fighting. Just since we were kind of the underdogs. That was the theme of the season that, super proud of this team. Fighters.
And as being one of the upperclassmen on that roster, Sarah, I imagine that, the upperclassmen, that there were some teaching moments that you had to have with some of the younger underclassmen that, hey, this is part of the game. When you have a lot of freshmen there, that I imagine there had to be some mentoring going on with that upperclassmen group and with such a young team.
Yeah, totally. I think, again, we had a lot of awesome freshmen, including Carmen, who really came in and were such integral parts of the team from the get-go on the field. That, with transitioning to the collegiate level, there's obviously kind of a lot of, transitions that you ultimately have to go through and learn as you go. But I think they really took it with stride, and it was awesome, mentoring them. And, they're still my close friends to this day. So.
Sorry, a good chance right there from the Big Green as we're in overtime number one, a closely guarded contest here, 1-1. And when you look at the numbers, shots by period in that contest, Dartmouth out shooting Bryant 8-5 in the first half, 8-7 in the second half. Bryant out shooting Dartmouth here in this overtime, 7-4. So the Bulldogs started to put on a lot of pressure here in this first overtime. And do you guys kind of feel like it was a little bit of that fatigue factor that kind of allowed them to have some of those chances? What was that difference that got them more looks in that first overtime?
Yeah, I think the fatigue definitely could have been part of it. Like we've been saying with a short bench, like fatigue and fatigue is really a factor. And our team had really good fitness, and throughout regulation, we could usually outrun teams even with a shorter bench. But once you get into overtime and less players on the field, and it's just that much longer that you've been playing, it definitely starts to set in a little bit. I think sometimes also it's just, I know certain years, I'm not sure, I don't remember specifically if it was this year, but we would, after having a break in the game, whether it was like halftime or the break before the first overtime, we would sometimes take a few minutes to get back into the flow of things. So I'm not sure if that was a factor here as well, but since the overtimes are short, you have to really be ready at the whistle.
Yeah. I think fatigue definitely was a big factor here. And I think what Carmen said, we had really great fitness, but that's something I think overtime is just so mental in a lot of ways. Both teams are super fatigued. Fitness is obviously a huge factor, but it's kind of that mental component of really pushing through when you're fatigued and, taking care of the little things on defense.
Even just watching this overtime period here, you can just see games much more spaced out, a lot more stick handling here, those long passes. But yeah, you could definitely tell the energy of this overtime, both teams, especially early September here in New Hampshire. I mean, again, the AstroTurf, 15, 20 degrees hotter than it is outside. I imagine just seeing it that, it was probably hot out there knowing an early September day in Hanover.
Yeah, I think Pat Salva said in just our text messages getting prepared for this, he said it was so hot out and the game was so long, I think his computer got damaged or something. But, yeah, New Hampshire's weather is definitely extreme. It's not always cold. I think these kind of early fall games were pretty brutal.
You mentioned the conditioning part of it, and and like you said, Carmen, in a game like this is where that conditioning really comes into play. And how big of a difference in, let's say, your conditioning at the high school level than getting to the collegiate level? Was that a little bit of a wake up as to what the differences are there for conditioning high school and collegiate?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for starters, we have a pretty extensive, I would say, fitness testing process in the fall during preseason. We have about 10 different fitness tests, some running, some weightlifting. So you really can't slack off and just expect that natural fitness will really get you through those. Everyone's got to be training over the summer. And then preseason itself, there was a lot of, just double sessions, triple sessions throughout the day, which gets you conditioned sort of in a way without, just running sprints. It definitely gets your fitness level up. But I think it wasn't really until the winter and spring that I really realized what the Division I conditioning was like in the off season. Because that's really where it takes the next step from high school is all the off season conditioning. Lots of running, lots of weightlifting, just something that you aren't really expected to do at the high school level.
Yeah, pretty early lifts in the winter, in the dead of winter, 6 a.m. Definitely it's kind of a rite of passage that your alarm's not going to go off one of those times. You're going to freak out. I remember my freshman year, mine didn't go off, and I sprinted over to Leverett and was in a panic. But yeah, I think it's year-round fitness that you have to go through. And I think, the physical part of it's one thing, but I think the mental piece is really kind of the big part of our fitness program. It just really sets you up to be at your peak performance, both physically, but I think more importantly, mentally. It's not easy to wake up at 6 a.m. in January in New Hampshire.
I was going to ask, for a field hockey player, what is those off-season work? What are you in particular working out as far as to try to translate onto the field? You mentioned, Sarah, running, lifting weights, but is there other stuff that what is an off-season workout for a field hockey player like? I guess is my ultimate question.
Yeah, so we did a lot of agility work. So that's like classic, like pro agility, different cone drills that we would do on the indoor turf. In terms of lifting, it would be a lot of, field hockey. It's very dominated. Like you have to have very strong legs. You're kind of in a squat position the whole game. So we did a lot of like lower body work with, different squats, lunges, things like that. And the running portion, we did, a ton of like 300-yard shuttles between the 25-yard line, which I think still gives me nightmares to this day. But so I think Carmen can probably speak to that better than myself. She kind of just came out of that. If I tried to do that stuff right now, I'd be out.
Yeah, it is definitely some brutal training sessions, but I definitely think, you see it pay off when you get into your spring scrimmages and everyone's sort of stronger and faster than they were the previous fall. So I mean, like Biko said, a lot of different things that we do. We have distance running, we have shorter running, sprints, agility. And so it's definitely a variety of things, and our coaches are really involved in that, as well as our lift coach. So we have sort of a whole support team, definitely planning what's the best type of thing for our workouts, our recovery, and just how to be better next season.
Yeah, I think with that too, like for anyone that's watching, like not to scare you about the fitness portion, like it's only a factor of kind of the overall experience in training. Like Dartmouth, the just athletic program is so good just in terms of your recovery as well. Like Carmen mentioned, we did a lot of stuff on, nutrition, a lot of, I remember my junior and senior year, we got these like Normatec recovery tools that were in like the weight room that were awesome just in terms of recovering your legs faster. You just have like a ton of different resources within the athletic department that you can tap into to aid like your recovery, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you guys, just as far as the facilities as far as an athlete goes, and in those in the weight rooms and all that. Can you speak to that and what it was like having those at your DP2, like you were just talking about, Sarah, in those recovery programs? Just what how that's set aside, or how that's different from other schools, at least just as far as Dartmouth is concerned.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things about the sports programs at Dartmouth. DP2 is so extensive and supportive for the athletes. It has everything from academic counseling, career counseling, nutrition, mental health, and leadership training. It just really has everything there to support you both mentally and physically. So that I think is really unique. And then in terms of the facilities, Florin is awesome. That's our weight room, super nice. It has like a classroom on the lower level and some study rooms up above, which provide opportunities for the teams to use for different types of sessions. And then they actually built a brand new indoor field house this year, which Biko and I both missed, unfortunately, but that's really awesome for indoor training in the winter, and it opens up Leverone for more use for, all the fall sports and I guess all the sports can sort of use those in their off season. So there's been some really exciting improvements and in the facilities.
Yeah, really jealous we're missing that indoor facility. It looks awesome.
Now, who just had that open look there?
I think that was Lenny.
Okay, so what it looked like went right through the legs of the goaltender there, but a nice opportunity. As we're in overtime number 2, by the way, we had a quick seg into overtime number 2 here. But as we mentioned, Dartmouth gets some great looks here in this second overtime. Eventually, 9 total shots. Was it just that second win in that second overtime? It seems like you got a little bit of some of that energy back in the second stanza of OT.
Yeah, even just watching it briefly right now, it just seems like a shift in tempo or momentum for us. I think, kind of going into that second overtime, it's kind of do or die at that point before shootout. So I remember kind of that shift from the first overtime to the second of people really, regrouping and picking it up both individually and collectively, recognizing what we have to do and, those little tweaks that you can do when transitioning to the overtime style of 7 people on the field.
Carmen, do you notice a difference in the style of play, at least for the first couple minutes here of overtime number 2?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Viko's saying, definitely getting up the energy, just realizing it's sort of coming down to the wire. I think, our team was really resilient and was able to sort of, work through over a long period of time. I think that's something we were good at, is sort of improving during the game. That close opportunity there, but
great save by Emma.
But yeah, I think definitely we were able to make improvements off the first overtime.
Yeah, nice kick save there by Emma Plum there. She's made some nice kick saves out there on the field. And when we look back to it, I mean, obviously this is a big game for a very young Big Green squad here. And I think, Sarah, you might have alluded to it earlier. That this was coming off 2 tough games. This one's a wire-to-wire game. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but this was an important game for a very young squad at the time.
It was a very pivotal game, I think, just in terms of like shifting the momentum of how our season was going so far. I think, we went into this game knowing that it was a must win and we knew it was going to be a battle. So yeah, definitely super important game.
Did you kind of have that feeling, Carl? I mean, as a freshman, you're kind of just obviously worried about playing in the moment here. But I mean, now looking back on it, a big, possibly momentum swing and a big positive boost or confidence boost for your squad early on in the season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, every win you can get is so important. And like you said, early on in the season, it even makes that much more of a difference because it sort of determines the mindset for the next few games. And as a young team, we sort of needed that confidence. A lot of us, didn't have any wins really yet in Division I field hockey. So definitely important to get that.
Yeah.
So it looks like here we're going to get another look from Bryant. And again, Emma Plum's been really kept on her toes here ever since she came in the second half, and she has played very well in this one, the freshman.
Yeah, she has. I think that aggressive style really was incredible.
And just from a player standpoint, obviously forward and a midfielder here, what do you think are some of the intangibles a good goalie in field hockey needs to have, just from what you've seen? From your position, what do you think some of the intangibles a good field hockey goalie needs to have to be successful?
Yeah, I think definitely they need to be able to be resilient. Like I said before, I think that was a quality on our team overall. But goalies in general in any sport need to be able to bounce back when something, when a goal goes in. You need to just be, fresh slate for the next play. And then field hockey goalies specifically, I think, you have to be really on your toes. It's fast moving in the circle. Lots of times you can't see what's in front of you. And so you have to be able to just be on your feet. And then communication, I would say, is really, really important. The goalie is almost like the quarterback of the defense, I would say. They're doing a lot of talking to the defenders, telling them where to mark, telling them, what type of outlet, where the openings are on the outlet. So that's really important in a goalie as well.
Yeah, I was going to say communication is very, very big as a goalie. Also just poise, kind of being that steady head on the field. And again, kind of that quarterback that Carmen mentioned of just, being that sense of guidance and direction for the defense, saying if someone needs to shift a certain direction or just things like that are so big. And of course, athleticism like anyone on the field, but field hockey goalies definitely unique.
Now, this may be a silly question, but, are there styles of goaltenders like you have in ice hockey, like you have like the butterfly goalie, or, is it all kind of the same as far as it goes in the field hockey realm?
Yeah. What I think, you can't really go down for like a butterfly or
right.
They have the stick, but they don't really use it that much unless like they're blocking a shot in the air. Mm-hmm. I would say it just comes down to, you have kind of the aggressive style of goalie like we see with Emma right now. And then we kind of have more of a goalie that is more conservative and maybe stays in the net a little bit more. I guess kind of like when you think of a quarterback, you have a pocket QB like Tom Brady, or you have someone like Cam Newton that runs the ball. I guess you can break it down like that.
I think all three of us can appreciate the New England Patriots references here, as we are all from Massachusetts. So we thank you for that, Sarah. Thank you very much. But just as far as anything to add on that, Carmen, just as far as different styles, if there are, from what you've seen in your field?
No, I mean, that pretty much covers it. I think it's definitely interesting to see in high school, my team actually, we didn't have a goalie, so we got the men's ice hockey goalie to come play for us. And so it was pretty interesting to see like the translation. It's definitely different. Emma also played ice hockey, although she was a skater, not a goaltender there. But there's a little bit of sort of like old time ice hockey, like stack the pads type thing. So different goalies, some will come out and do that earlier, some will a little later, wait to be more patient in the net. So different goalies have different strategies. It's really pretty individual, I would say.
Now, would you say a good portion of your teammates played ice hockey growing up?
So not at the beginning. I think Biko and I, when I first joined this season, I think Biko and I were the only two. But then under me, there were a few more. Tatum Schultz was a year below me. She played growing up. Grayson Campbell, 2 years below me, played growing up. Sarah Falkson played in high school, although she didn't play before that. So I think most of the Massachusetts girls played, but the Pennsylvania girls, not so much.
Yeah,
go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say we did play, like in the winter, we played in like an intramural ice hockey league. And so we always had the field hockey team, I think, were like defending champs for like the entire 4 years I was there.
How many goals did you notch in that league, Sarah?
Well, I don't know. That was always fun.
Yeah, I just think that's a very interesting dynamic, and obviously, I imagine, again, could be a stupid question here, but stick handling as far as going from the puck to the ball. I mean, how much? I mean, obviously there is a difference, but I mean, how much of a time did that take you to get used to going from managing the puck to the ball?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's unique for field hockey is that there's no lefties. So, I mean, I was lucky that I was a righty, so it was a pretty easy transition. But definitely, I know that can be tough for some people. The fact that you can't use the other side of your stick definitely changes things in field hockey. But just being able to have quick hands, I feel like translates pretty well. I know that's also a factor in lacrosse, and just the hand-eye and the quick hands are sort of, you can translate that between different sports.
Yeah, I feel like that it's interesting how in field hockey they only have like righty sticks. You can't necessarily be a lefty, but um, I know there's like a few players at the collegiate level who kind of played lefty, and I don't think we ever played against someone who was like a lefty. But I know the University of Michigan had a player who I played club with who played lefty, and it was definitely unconventional and hard to defend.
That would probably be a very big, wow, that one hit right off the post there. Yeah, that would have to be a very tough balancing act to, especially if you're a lefty, and something I did not know right there. We got about less than a minute here till we for overtime number 2. And as we've been watching this again, we can kind of tell the heat and the humidity is really starting to play effect into both squads here in this game. But yeah, the fatigue really starting to set in. You can tell for Bryant as well, guys, that they started to wear down there in that second overtime big time.
Yeah, there's been some pretty close chances on both sides.
Yeah, I think when the game goes on for this long, it's definitely, both teams are feeling it, and everyone's trying to sort of finish it.
All right, so we've finished overtime here, and we're going to have the shootout towards the end, a game tied up at 1. And for this segment, Carmen and Sarah, I'm just going to kind of let you guys take over here and kind of walk us through the shootout and just kind of, walk us through what you're thinking and just kind of some insight as to what's happening, all right?
Okay.
Perfect.
So who's that, Lenny?
Nice. Yeah, so with shootouts, you start at the 25-yard line and you go on clock starts when you touch the ball, but you only have 8 seconds.
Yeah, and it definitely it feels like more time, I think, than you would think. Like, you have plenty of time to get in there and shoot, but definitely on the rebounds, it's a rush.
Nice stop there by Emma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is where her aggressive style of play really was super pivotal to, the ultimate outcome. It's so hard in shootouts to play against an aggressive goalie. It's basically going 1v1 against another field player.
Right, and especially in shootouts, if the ball goes out of the circle, the play's over. So if the goalie can just, attack and kick it out, then that's really, really helpful. And I'm sure Emma will do that at some point in these shootouts.
I always liked shootouts. I thought they definitely nerve-wracking, but they were...
Yeah, Vigo had the quick hands. She always had some good moves on the shootouts.
No, I never really shot, though. I feel like sometimes shooting was definitely the better option.
And again, that aggressiveness you guys alluded to came in huge right there on that play, right there, breaking up the nice attempt.
Right, yeah. Yeah, definitely you see on the shootouts, you see some really creative moves on the attack, which is pretty cool. You can go, like, some of them like are crazy ones on like YouTube that some international people do. We would always try to practice those.
This is Wazzy.
Oh,
just
so
missed. Yeah, you always had to practice like deception with the goalie. I think like Carmen said, there's the international players are just so creative with their stick work that I think we always used to just like Google different shootout goals, or even if you just watched like a national level game.
Right.
Super deceptive and creative.
Yeah, and you also, I think it's just so important to read how the goalie's coming at you. Like we said, like there's totally different approaches. Like you can see here, like coming out pretty far. Didn't end up working out that time, but you just got to be able to read what the goalie's doing and adjust based on that.
Yeah, that player actually had really good poise going into that.
Right.
This KP, another freshman.
Oh, yeah.
It's just trickled in.
Yeah.
I remember she was like angry at herself after that goal of how it like almost didn't go in, but I was like, you scored. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Go. Oh man.
Yeah, so yeah, the thing when the goalie, comes out so far, it definitely leaves a pretty wide open net behind them. So it's kind of risky. Like you really got to get the ball if you're going to do that. But I think Emma made some good decisions of like when to go out and when to not come out. But sometimes it's just a risk you have to take, and it doesn't work out.
Look at that. Look at that. 5-hole right there.
It is, Biko.
Yeah, I think I like faked a reverse shot, which I obviously wasn't going to take, but
that was awesome.
And then big play right here as well.
Yeah, Bryant needed this to keep it happening, so this is big play right here.
Yeah, there it is.
And that's all she wrote.
Let's go. Big win.
Biko with the game winner.
That had to be a very happy locker room at the end of that one.
Yeah, it was. Missed those days.
Well, Sarah, Carmen, before we let you go here and just kind of some closing thoughts. I know we talked about a lot today, and but just to kind of summarize, again, what that season meant to you, what it means to you now that you're an alum of Dartmouth, just put it all together for us, what that season meant to you personally.
Yeah, so definitely, as my first season at Dartmouth, it was so instrumental to my time at Dartmouth in general and to my experience on the field hockey team. I think it really prepared me for the remaining 3 years, and it taught me a lot in terms of just about the sport, but also about what it means to be a Division I athlete and to compete at such a high level. So I really appreciate everything I learned that season and all the leaders I had to look up to and the coaching. So great season and great memories looking back on it.
Yeah, I can, echo what Carmen said. I think that season was just one that, I'll always remember. It was a team where we always came in as the underdogs. And I think out of my 4 years, that was the team that had the most hustle, the most heart, the most grit. And I think, Brett, you touched upon this, that, when you look back after the course of your years and your time playing, what you remember is, your teammates and kind of the memories that you had and the lessons that you learned along the way. And I think this 2016 season will always, kind of stick in my memory as one of, hustle, heart, grit, amazing teammates that are now my friends for life. And I think this game too was, you have kind of those few games that you always remember, but this one for sure was an awesome one that I'll always remember.
Well, we appreciate the Massachusetts delegation for joining us here on Big Green Sports Classic. Carmen Braceras, class of 2019. Sarah Tabik, class of 2017. Thank you so much for joining us. It was fun doing this with you guys. And again, congratulations and go Big Green. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Now got to go watch the Patriots.
You've been watching Dartmouth Sports Classic. I'm Brett Franklin. Until next time, we'll see you here on DartmouthSports.com and Dartmouth Sports Classic. Take care, everybody.